Hello there. It's official, dear viewer. We are going to hell in a handcart, a Starmer handcart. The messages from the Starmer regime are coming in thick and fast. Do not question my authority to forcibly change this country into a dystopian nightmare. His law will crack down on all dissent. And under his administration, anti-establishment rhetoric has now become a crime. Did you ever think you'd come to see that day in the UK? And only after a few weeks of Starmer coming into power. And it seems that our judiciary are all too happy to gleefully hand out the required freedom of speech smashing prison terms. And I will just point out that the royal arms appear in every courtroom in England and Wales, except, for some or other reason, the Magistrates' Court in the City of London. And this, says the courts and tribunals judiciary, shows that justice comes from the monarch, and a law court is part of the royal court, hence its name. Those judges should ponder on that particular point, and so should Keir Starmer, and so should the King, when they let those who would harm our children go free or give them token sentences, while handing out the stiffest prison terms to dissenters on social media. After all, which is worse? Isn't harming children the worst crime? And then there's those cases of high-profile offenders against the young who appear to have been protected and continue to be protected even after they're found out. We are living in the times of evil being rewarded as good and good being treated as evil. So we really are going to hell in a handcart. Now, writing in the Telegraph, Isabel Oakeshott makes a very good point. She points back to the Reds under the beds time of McCarthyism in US history, and says that Starmer is doing something very similar, if not the same, hunting down all those who don't follow a particular narrative and shutting them down to the point of imprisonment. But what Starmer is doing is far, far worse, or in my opinion, is far, far worse. McCarthyism was about protecting the nation state and its democratic and capitalist-based system, and its culture and way of life, protecting it from the threat of overbearing communism as practiced in the USSR. Whatever you think of the method, that is what it was about. With Starmer and the UK, it is completely the opposite. He is using the same techniques, but in an attempt to destroy the UK as it is, to usher in a new world communist order under stringent and definitely non-capitalist control. McCarthy, as far as I can see, was intent on protecting the US and its people. He did it in a highly, irregular way, but you could argue the intent was to protect democracy. But with two-tier Keir, you can see exactly where his priorities lie. And they are not with protecting anything of our past, or our democracy, nor our economy, and especially not the majority population. You only have to look at those so-called riot courts to see what's going on. With judges who previously let go free those who pose a massive threat to our children, who are now giving life-shattering sentences to anyone who breathed a dissenting word on social media. Yes, life-shattering. Even those who are carers to the vulnerable have been shuffled off to the cells for a hefty chunk of their lives. And then each of these sentences handed down is a threat to all and sundry, that a misspoken or misplaced word by those deemed unacceptable to the state will attract the full force of the law. No wonder the membership of Toby Young's Free Speech Union, of which I am a member, is snowballing, with their latest newsletter today saying, "Welcome to all the new members who've joined the Free Speech Union. in the wake of the government's recent clampdown on free speech. And an added bonus is that you'll get help with any future free speech issues. Well, what choice do people have when they want to express their disgust about the actions of a government that is not listening to those that supposedly elected them? A government that is not only refusing to listen, but is actually doing the reverse of what the people want. And joining the FSU is far more effective in sending out a message than getting violent is. Do not spend your money and your future so poorly by engaging in riotous behaviour. Get an FSU membership. And no, I don't get a kickback. The FSU doesn't even know I'm plugging them. And then get to the next of Mr. T's rallies. Do not give the authorities the chance of silencing you in a cell and buy the protection of the FSU for a very small annual fee. If our government, a government that is so wedded to the European Convention on Human Rights, won't protect your freedom of speech, then we must buy our own protection. That's right. Keir Starmer's woke lefty Labour government has privatised the human right to the freedom of expression. It has outsourced the protection of free speech to Toby Young's FSU. You could not make this up. Now, who is that is really running the show then? Who is pulling Keir the Neil marionette strings from above? Something has changed because, although you've probably seen it, this is what the Telegraph reported Starmer saying back in February 2013. I think that if there are too many investigations and too many cases coming to the court, then that can have a chilling effect for free speech. This is about trying to get the balance right, making sure time and resources are spent on cases that really do need to go to court, and not spent on cases which people might think really would be better dealt with by a swift apology and removal of the offending tweet. Not a lot of that going on today, is there? Starmer was also quoted as saying that there's a lot of stuff out there that is highly offensive, that is put out on a spontaneous basis that is quite often taken down pretty quickly, and the view is that those sorts of remarks don't necessarily need to be prosecuted. And that same Telegraph report also pointed out, last year, Mr. Starmer said people who posted offensive messages when they are drunk and then take them down as soon as they sober up should avoid prosecution. Anyway, you get the gist of it. But Starmer's government, as one cheek of the uniparty derriere, is continuing the policy of increased inward migration. And the vast majority of people do not like that. But Starmer thought that his huge majority, based on about a quarter of the population voting for him, gave him the mandate to do this. He is mistaken, and his advisers should have pointed that out to him, but they obviously did not, and he still refuses to listen, preferring instead to double down on the use of the paramilitary police and the courts. That is crassly stupid political overreach. And come next May's local elections, the Starmer regime will be hit with a huge dose of reality. If not sooner.